have Nicolas Garnier from Pfizer with us, and he's the head of patient advocacy, oncology, and rare diseases at Pfizer Global Product Development. So very happy to have somebody, from development here. Then we do have Audrey Coiffic from IQVIA. She's the engagement manager for genomic and precision medicine. Then we do have Erik Steinfelder, who's the scientific global enterprise relationship lead at Thermo. Boryana Alexieva, she is the government affairs and patient engagement and advocacy lead at Janssen, Johnson & Johnson. She's based in Bulgaria. And I think also Andrija, who I'm seeing here, Tomovic, he is based in Bulgaria as well, and he is Novartis Oncology in Bulgaria, and the upcoming president for innovative medicine starting October 1st, I see. So congratulations to your appointment. And Andrija, as I see you here, maybe I start with you, handing over to you so that you can give us your perspective.
Thank you, Gunnar. Can you hear me? Does it work? Just to check if
yes,
everything
it works.
is set up. Great, super. No, thanks a lot, really, first of all, to Biotech Atelier for organizing those 2 days Congress. We really could learn a lot over the last several sessions. And pleasure to be on this panel together with you, Gunnar, and all distinctive and honorable colleagues and friends on the panel. I'm sure that each of us will have something to say on this very exciting topic and very relevant topic for the pharma industry, but I would say for the entire healthcare sector. And Gunnar, you already said in your intro presentation a lot that resonates so nicely with many of us, that patient centricity, it has been evolving topic for our sector and for pharma industry in general. Yeah, at the beginning, it was just, promotional wording without some deeper meaning. But with the time, I believe we have been learning, as you rightfully said, and we were evolving, from a different aspect. And I believe that patient centricity has for us two key aspects. And I call both them hardcore business perspective, and the second one, hardcore soft cultural perspective, if you will. Equally important, that's why they are called hardcore. Under the first umbrella, I'm mostly referring to the pharma business model that you already presented, for traditionally being, linear, going from research, clinical development, registration, reimbursement, commercialization, and having basically patients mostly at the end of the cycle as a sum of undifferentiated, non-personalized group, and having actually for pharma industry mostly HCPs and doctors and physicians as primary customers, if you will, So somehow traditionally patients have been neglected and not put in the center as they should be. You rightfully said that we are evolving our strategic model, our business model in pharma industry, and trying to put rightfully the patients literally in the center of everything what we do. So and this is learning curve. When we are developing something for people who will be using that, it absolutely makes sense to do it together with them, obviously, and to include them as early as possible. So traditionally, pharma industry was caring about clinical endpoints, about science, about medical points. It was very important, to prolong life, if you will. But nowadays, I think we are learning and focusing more, thanks to the input from the precious patient organization and their advocacy work, that it's not only about prolonging and giving more years to life, it's also about giving more life to years, as one cancer patient said to us. So we really need to address the aspect of the quality of life, what kind of years we are extending and to listen patients more. I think today we heard this famous topic, fatigue, that is, very often in a different disease areas quite neglected. Physicians usually have tendency, everyone has fatigue nowadays, we are aging, we are tiring, it's demanding, but actually that trivial aspect has been so long neglected by many healthcare practitioners, even by pharma industry, not sufficiently looking into that outcome or key endpoint while developing the drugs. And when we are designing, as you know, and all my colleagues expert in the pharma industry, the pharma strategy business model, we always like to start outside in. So to be basically looking what is happening in external world, what kind of trends we have there, and how they are shaping our strategy and business model. And if you're looking really the aging population, more age-related chronic type of diseases, digital, data, technology, science, all those trends are directly telling us, yes, you need to put patient in the center of your business model in order to capture up to opportunities of those trends and to turn them into real actions and the value creation for the healthcare system. Also, if you're looking, I mean, rightfully, patient voice is becoming relevant for many external decision makers. So we see patients sitting on the regulatory approvals. In some countries, they are sitting on the reimbursement committees and many other important external decision makers that are influencing our strategy. I can say, and Boryana probably know much better than me, but in Bulgaria, patients are sitting and voting on the supervisory board of the National Fund. They're sitting also on the Ministry of Health Commission for Rare Diseases. And we believe, I think, Boryana, you probably agree, they will be evolving also in Bulgaria, but in globally, their importance and influence, those important decision points for pharma industry will be growing. That's why we have no choice. We need to put really into our strategy the patients at the center. And that's all what I have been saying so far is about those kind hardcore business perspective. If I'm talking about soft perspective, and Gunnar, you also were talking about that, it is actually about us in pharma to describe our purpose in a more tangible approach, to shape our corporate culture. Patient centricity give meaning to our work. And if you will, meaning is now a new currency and the new economic story of our times. What people are motivated by, once when you have paid enough, so to say, are factors that have nothing to do with money, but more about purpose, belonging, and sense of meaning. And this is where patient centricity play an important role. The life, I believe, for all of us is the most meaningful when it's not about ourselves. The purpose is always defined by sacrifice, doing something for someone else. And people are the best when they do something in service for delighting others. And this is actually, in my view and in pharma, bringing patients and patient centricity in shaping our culture, humanizing our business model, our pharma business model, and enabling all of us and our colleagues, associates to live their purpose on a daily basis. That would be my short perspective on this very important topic. And I will pause now, Gunnar, and give back to you to kindly invite other panelists, as I'm sure that they will have also a lot to say. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Andrija. This was fabulous. I like this a lot, and especially a key message. Humanizing our business model. I think this is something and it's measurable. It's not something like being kind to patient communities. That's something nice to have. No, it's solid. You call it as of kind of a soft core, but it's solid and measurable at the same time and rewarding. So resonates very well with me. Thanks a lot. Boryana, not only because you're also kind of a neighbor to Andrija in Bulgaria. It's a huge country, by the way. So I don't know if you're real neighbors, but you were nodding a lot to what Andrija said. So that's I'd love to give the word to you next.
I'm in a position not only to agree with what Andrija was saying, not because we are in one country, but it's very common sense and very common thinking. We as industry members identify not only in Bulgaria, it's becoming kind of a very precious, I will say, activity from each and every member of industry. And preparing myself for today's meeting, I was thinking about something which is also a game changer. because the industry and all these people working in the companies, not only pharmaceuticals, but also medical devices, equipment, all kind of related with the healthcare, let's call them entities among Europe, they start to understand something, which is that the patients, no matter of the disease, are not obliged to have superpowers in each and every direction during their journey, starting from diagnosis, the journey to the physician, to the medical center, to the laboratory, because probably some of you remember in the past that even the physicians, even the industry was just waiting the patient to come, to buy, and to go. And afterwards, the feedback was low. Afterwards, the expectation from side of the medical society was different. So when I prepared today myself, I was thinking whether all these superpowers in um, let's say a realistic world in the past are already gone. So we all know that the patient should not have telepathy, invisibility, the power of super memory, or some unlimited funds, or teleportation, or super strength, or weather control, no matter of where and how they will reach in order to meet and to access some treatment. But it's a good evolution among industry members and all these participants in the healthcare system. I will not repeat, and it's a great that we all echo in the same as Gunnar and as Andrija, that the industry priorities are now becoming kind of duties and it's everyday work, because empowering patients with all the knowledge we as industry members are capable to do, it's only because of one reason. We would like them to be empowered beyond the disease, to give them something more, and of course to support them in the disease journey and afterwards the healing process, etc., but beyond the hospital walls. You know, in countries like Bulgaria, relatively not that well in regards to healthcare funding, the industry, it's more and each and every day becoming stronger in some co-project awareness, which is coming up. They're also supporting the patient advocacy groups and single patient groups with this collaboration regarding policy shape. And as Adria said, it's a great opportunity here that we can see patients being present in the National Health Insurance Fund of Bulgaria as a main voice. They have a quota. And also it's a separate department already in Bulgaria, for example, and it's a good what happened since last year, separate department, which is called exactly Patient Advocacy and Centricity. So it's a kind of good transition. From my personal work, being as a member of pharmaceutical company Johnson & Johnson, I'm proudly to say that our patient engagement, it's everyone's responsibility in the company. And my role, not only as a governmental affairs person, but also the one who is communicating, for example, with the patient and the groups, is to bring this enthusiasm and to engage even my colleagues within the company, and bringing to all of the members of our company this patient at the heart of our work mentality and behavior, because we noted not only in Bulgaria, in other countries as well, that this is something commitment for improving the patient lives, as all of you said this, and it's a clear understanding that the patient voice, it's actually the foundation of any insight or solution we discover or develop or promote. Last thing from my side, I would probably go and would expect a nice support for one idea. Probably we first with Andrija will try to introduce it in Bulgaria, and we will call to action. for some common industry project for patient academy, because it's a gap in Bulgaria. For example, in order to cooperate with patient groups, of course, with other stakeholders, in order to present useful practices, kind of a toolkit, could be virtual in different direction, and of course to enhance the patient knowledge for each and every direction of their process, including even administrative excellence. Not last thing I would like to share, that my belief as an expert in healthcare with a lot of years of practice is that focusing on quality over the quantity, it's also major point in our patient-centric presence, our patient-centric work, and our future going further together with the patients. So that's from my side. Thank you so much for inviting me on this platform. And I'm happy to be a panelist today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Boryana, for your wonderful perspective. And yes, and you started with speaking about the superpower of patients. And this is also something to be in mind. I mean, we do have a lot of expectations also towards patients. When we say, okay, we want to engage patients and we want to make patients at the center of everything we do. I mean, that's quite a lot that we really are also imposing on the patient community. So also bearing in mind that one. Yes, but what I see today, really, I mean, especially with the strong patient advocacy community that we have, they're really, these are people, these are persons really with superpowers. They do have superpowers, and I really, really, have got my highest admiration for these people, and they really help us on our way as well. So thanks very much, Boryana. We will continue our conversation and also, maybe have time to touch base on your suggestion. I now would like to give it to Erik Steinfelder, who is providing also, let's say, a specific perspective from a diagnostics perspective. So far, we've been speaking as, let's say, the pharma representatives, speak about treatment, access to treatment. What about now the perspective in the diagnostic field? So Erik, looking forward to your talk.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gunnar, and thanks all to the panelists to having this discussion, which I think is great. And I already learned a lot, I must say, and some things I will not repeat because I can only agree. So I think we all have a similar mindset. But also in preparation, I thought, well, it's a panel discussion, so let's also throw up some things that maybe can spice up the discussion a little bit. So I would like to share 3 short perspectives on how we experience patient centricity, patient advocacy. And for us, the most clear one to begin with is our work when it comes to clinical trials, because there we are sometimes between the patient and the pharmaceutical company. We know that the patient is not a superpower or a superman, but we also have some data gathered that says that 70% of participants in a clinical trial are living more than 2 hours away from the study center. This might be obvious, but it may sometimes be challenging. 80% of the trials are delayed due to recruitment issues, and in most cases more than a month. So we have to find ways to get them easier on board. And we see that retention is also an issue. 38% of the people who dropped out say actually, well, we didn't really feel comfortable at the study center, or we had some issues there. Now, of course, I could say we have services to help there, and we are having patient centricity. We have dedicated teams to do that and to help that. I think that's obvious. What I must say is that actually it's actually quite impressive what already is done between the different stakeholders. The discussions are there, the experience is there, we are learning from each other. And I'm the first one to say we need to improve, and especially the patient voice needs to be heard. But I think also we came a long way, and I think Andrija said at the beginning, we evaluated as a process, as a business model, and having more patient-centric approach. So I think that's good news, but still work to be done. Now, the interesting part is we are not only working on clinical trials. We are also a company that produces medical equipment. We talk to healthcare partners. And there we also would like to talk to the patient. So the interesting thing there is that if we would like to introduce a new equipment or new test on the market, we need to test it with material from patients. And now we are suddenly not a reliable partner in clinical trial again. Now we are industry. Ooh, that's scary. I'm not going to share my sample. So whenever we want to verify a test performance, or we want to do instrument conformance studies, it's very, very difficult for us to work with patient material or to work with patients to actually to do what we have to do according to the law or all kinds of prescriptions to actually help the patient. So there is still a much bigger gap than in the clinical trials, where we need to find ways to work with different stakeholders to say, hey, what do we need to do? How can we educate the patient, but also the biobanks, the researchers? We need to work together. But we're really sorry, what we are trying to use the material for is not a scientific study. It will not result in a publication. It will just make it possible for us to actually make the test available so you can be tested and treated earlier. For us, that's still a challenge. Now, putting a different hat on, I'm also the chair of the Patient and Public Advisory Council of Health RI in the Netherlands. So there, basically, I'm representing the patients. And there we see, whenever we are invited to government discussions, consortia, we are the tick box. So everybody talks about, yeah, we need to talk about patients, we need to involve them, etc. But in most cases, what we experience is we are there because the others have to. But do they really want to listen to us? Do they really want to take our input to account? In most cases, not. Compared to 5 years ago, yes, it's getting better. But there we still need to, we need to overcome quite some challenges. So I think going back to the initial question and also ending positive, I think what we learn together with all the different stakeholders involved, with pharma, with other partners, please let us also use the experience that we have in clinical trials, that we have in pharma, and how we engage with patients and how we work with them. Can we also copy or learn that in other areas to have there more progress and actually have more patient centricity than we have only in those cases that I just mentioned? I think there is still a lot to win. And I think that could really help the patient community as a whole.
Thanks a lot, Erik. I think this is a very good perspective that you provided here, and really, and already spoke to very concrete challenges. And yes, I mean, access to clinical studies. This is something which is something that is a key problem. Indeed, this is what we hear, and something that actually is not solved, but really needs some strong efforts. And I think one of really the areas where we should really put strongest efforts in, really, in order to really achieve, let's say, diversity in clinical studies and really accessibility to clinical studies. So that's something which is core important. And not the other 2 points. I mean, this is something. With regards to tests, so patients who are seen as kind of a test subject, and not as an individual, and we have to do it, and it's good for everyone in the end. But if you speak to the individual, no one wants to be that test subject, right? You try first, me second. So that's something. But yes, so how to solve that? That's something. And yes. Yeah, the tick box exercise where really patients tell us, okay, we are invited to a health technology assessment procedure, but actually, it's just, I don't know, it's really if it's taken into consideration what I'm telling them. So that's something that actually is also a joint effort that to change that, to strengthen really the voice and the power of patient that. So that's important. So very important aspects that you mentioned here. Thanks, Erik. So so good with that. Let's see who we have next. So maybe now we may take the perspective of Audrey, because Audrey is working for IQVIA. And IQVIA, there could be, they are kind of an intermediary between the industry and the patient community, so kind of a gatekeeper as well. So very curious to learn about the IQVIA perspective.
Yeah, thank you. Let me know if you can see my screen. I think so.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so I have prepared a presentation. Let me just make it. I can't do it. Obviously, the other one. Just one again. What are reverse that?
Right, and if you go to the read mode, then
This is okay.
yeah, that's perfect. Yeah,
Perfect.
wonderful.
Okay, thank you. So I try to be brief to keep some time for the discussion after that. So thank you for inviting IQVIA to this I would say conference and to this panel. So first I would like to say a little thing around patient centricity, that by discussing with my colleague preparing this talk, it was clear for the company that we want to mention patient centricity differently. It's like, because we think patient centricity can be seen as, okay, we are kind of traveling around and doing our job around the patient, and as you said before, Gunnar, probably asking feedback rather than inputs. And so one of the official goal of IQVIA is actually to be a patient-driven organization, and so that's what we're working on to become a truly patient-driven organization, to be forced to not only ask feedback, but really take the input at every step, and as you said, as early as possible in the process. As I'm also, as you said, in the genomic and precision medicine team, so I will try to give a little bit of input on this side. So just as a very brief introduction, IQVIA is a very large healthcare company with a very large footprint in different countries, many employees, and many of them are medical doctors, PhDs, epidemiologists, data scientists, technology experts, and we really need our experts to analyze those 100 billion healthcare records processed every year. And so you understand our job is to get access to data, analyze them, to improve the healthcare system, and to accelerate the development of innovative treatments for the benefit of the patient. So our solution are really in different areas, and then I would divide them in two parts. One is around clinical trials, and one is around data analysis and interpretation for our clients. And our clients are on one side the life science and pharmaceutical groups, and on the other side the non-pharma client that would include payer providers, government, and patient advocacy group or patient organization in general. So what we see on this slide is that we are through our broad portfolio of activities and expertise in contact with all the stakeholders, and our job is to improve collaboration, partnership, and to also bring data access management tool, privacy protection solution, technology solution in terms of analysis, and also sometimes also human resources and technology. So in a way, we are as kind of a bridge between the life science companies who, let's be honest, have the project and the mean to develop the treatment for the patient, but needs actually real data, real sample, as you said before, to actually develop and get real world evidence or clinical trial results to actually put the treatment on the market. Also sometimes more basic data like the genomic data of patient could help to or better know a disease or find new biomarkers to develop new diagnostic tests or just be able to stratify patient in the registries to be able to help finding those patients, as we said before. The faster you go to find patients with the right characteristics, the faster you will put your treatment on the market. So we are here to help them to get access to those data, but those data are not ours. They are the patient data by default. So what we want to achieve is a real collaboration between the two so that we can really accelerate this end-to-end delivery of innovative treatment. In terms of collaboration and partnership between IQVIA and patient organization, we can help on putting patient into at the center of this drug delivery system. We can help with the technology, we can help with the collaboration using our network with all the stakeholders, and we can also help in the strategy and discussion with payers and governments for strategies for reimbursement, for example. And of course, the patient organization can help us to communicate with the patient the right way, to really understand and include the voice of the patient in our step of our strategy, and to really have a full partnership, and also probably and kind of de-dramatize the relation that is often between the industry, pharma, and the patient, seen as a kind of not balanced equilibrium. So that's what we are trying to do. And so we are trying to apply it to our company, but we are also helping the other company, the pharma companies, to develop and this patent-driven system through this a platform that we have, always putting the two entities in collaboration. And just I think I'm going over time, but the idea is to, of course, always follow the ethical best practice, and for the collaboration with patient organization, and we are following guidelines for that. So doing everything to benefit patients, respecting and building trust, integrity, and maintaining the independence of the organization, and also, and of course, being open and honest on the purpose of collaboration. We are talking also about consent and really informing people about what we want to do with data. So I'm happy to take any question during the next discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks very much, Audrey, for giving us this perspective as well, being an intermediate between patient community and industry. I think that complements to our picture. Questions are coming in. I like that a lot, so I took some notes so that will help our discussion then. But now finally, I like to give the word to is it Nicolas or Nicolas as well? And I think you are joining us from across the Atlantic, right?
Absolutely. Can you hear me well?
Absolutely well, yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Well,
we see you as well. Wonderful.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this amazing panel and great event. A lot has been said already that obviously I totally agree with, so it's going to be difficult to say something different or new, but maybe just to first to re-emphasize a few points that, as you said at the beginning, right, there's a difference between patient engagement, patient advocacy on one hand side, and then patient centricity, which is not a strategy or something you do. It's more of a mindset. It's more of a culture, and culture is what you do when no one is looking. Right? Is every day, everywhere, everyone. And I believe that at Pfizer, but also my colleagues here on the panel have all embraced this culture of patient centricity throughout their entire their entire companies. I believe that patient centricity, patient engagement has made a lot of progress over the past decade, probably, where people some time ago were worried about tokenism or ticking the box or anything like that. But I feel like now patient engagement has really risen to the level almost of a science. And a few things to illustrate that. First of all, there are entire consortiums really almost dedicated to patient engagement. If you want to take the example of the Transcelerate Consortium, for example, which is a pharma cross-sponsor consortium looking at how can best practices, tools, guides, and best practices be developed and made available for the broader community to engage with patients and toolkits and so on and so forth. The second element is really the realization from regulators that patient engagement and patient-centric clinical trial development is essential. And for instance, the FDA regularly publishes guidelines for sponsors on how they expect pharmaceutical companies to conduct patient-centric clinical trial development. So that's really a very engaging, a very encouraging sign, and I think everybody can go and learn from those guidelines. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is obviously for a long time, patient engagement was a little bit of an art and obscure for many people, right? Obviously, you can do a patient ad board, have conversations, focus groups and whatnot, but now there's really the emerging science of patient preference. And with the science of patient preference, now people can really codify patient engagement and codify what patient wants to really implement that into a clinical development plan. And that is going to continue to grow, I believe, and really help everybody across the board integrate the feedback of patients in a very concrete manner that you can track, document, report back on, quantify, etc., etc. So I think overall these are very encouraging. Also, recently a very big focus on health literacy, right? Because if you want to engage with patients and communities, you have to speak a language that everybody can understand. And I think that with the big development of health literacy, again, as a science, is really going to make a bridge between the pharmaceutical companies, the regulators, and the patient communities to sit around the table, speak a common language, and understand each other. The final point I will mention is obviously very present now, a focus on diversity and inclusion and equity in patient engagement, but also in access to clinical trial information, access to clinical trial participation, and that is also now a must-have mindset for a true, thorough, and genuine patient engagement in the context of clinical trial development or anything related. So these are my remarks, and looking forward to speak with the panel.
Thanks a lot, Nicolas. This was excellent. I mean, you had the difficult task of speaking last, but you really you mentioned points that we haven't mentioned before. So, well, fantastic job, and indeed, and I like really that you speak about, it's becoming a science, so patient engagement as such is a science, health literacy as a science. So really, it speaks about the importance and also the need to have really systematic approaches. And a solid methodology in place in order really to to conduct patient engagement, to enhance health literacy amongst population, etc. So I like that very much, and also very much your point, Lars, about the equity. I think this is something that nowadays we cannot stress enough. So no one should be forgotten. That's also one of the major claims of the patient community. No one should be really left behind. And this is also, when we're speaking, especially speaking about, clinical trials, hundreds, thousands of participants, and in the end, patients are seen as numbers, and they see themselves just, you know, in a kind of a data set. No, it's individuals, and we need to ensure that no one is left behind there. So thanks very much, Nicolas, for this one. And actually, what you mentioned around, you know, the health literacy, also in order for patients to be empowered and be able to participate in the processes that we're discussing today. There was an interesting, a good question actually in the chat from our audience, stating, we are talking about patient engagement and involvement, but do you think, so do we, the panel, think that patients are ready to participate effectively in the discussion and are able to defend their interests? So are they equipped to really participate in that conversation? So I give it to the panel, whoever likes to speak.
I'm happy to react to the question, and my answer would be a resounding yes. This is what I do. This is my role, engaging with patients, caregivers, advocates around clinical trial development, and for the people that I bring along with me, every time it's a realization and astonishment on how sophisticated patients, caregivers, and advocates can be when they want to talk about science and clinical development. I mean, you know, when this is your community that is at stake, and you live and breathe, you know, a condition, a community, especially in the field of rare disease and oncology, for example, which are the areas that I know. I'm always amazed on how patients and caregivers can really quickly rise to the level of experts and really have sophisticated, very refined and intelligent feedback, questions, comments, and suggestions. So my answer would be absolutely yes.
Yeah, thanks, Nicolas. Yeah, so what do the others think?
I may
If you allow me,
oh, go ahead, Boryana. Go ahead.
please, Adria, thank you. I would echo on this point of view, because I also think that patients are knowledgeable more than ever before, especially when it's concerning to the smart knowledge related with the disease, with the approach, even let's say provoking to be very active part in the decision process. But there is one slight part which I still think that it's not excellent, and it's time consuming. It's related with administrative and let's say paperwork, let's say it like that, because some countries, some places, they still require this excellency. So yes, they're more knowledgeable than ever before, but this excellence in administrative and regulatory point probably needs to be enhanced and regularly updated, of course.
Very, very nicely said, Boryana and Nicolas. I fully agree with you. I would just also emphasize the points that they are part of the world. There are rural areas where patients are simply, we have to admit, not yet there. And it's also our responsibility to support them. They are part of the worlds that the patient organization do not yet have that level of maturity, like let's say in the US or maybe Western part or more developed part of the world. And we should not neglect that. And we should also enable them to increase and improve the literacy. And I believe because the science is constantly evolving, this topic is never static. I mean, it's becoming difficult even for us who are in the sector to catch up with all ongoing trends and everything what is getting, you know. So the science is evolving so rapidly that we are getting into new technology, new terminology, new knowledge, that it's never-ending story. And then what Boryana mentioned about administration complexity, again, especially in some part of the world, that's something that can be very overwhelming, really overwhelming, and needs to be also simplified. And hopefully, again, digitalization and ongoing trends and technology could help us to tackle that problem as well. But mindset is also important, I agree.
If I may, I think I totally agree with or what you said, if we can support the patients and the patient organization in all possible way, it's like we have to. Many of them are under-resourced, so all the time they spend on administration or finding money to travel where we want them to go, or spending time studying something or giving feedback, is lost for their patient or for themselves. So we need to really support in all the way possible. And also I think it's important to be sure that we give them also the feedback, because they help for everything. And then I think sometimes if you are at the end of a clinical trial and you never know what's going on with the results, or exactly what's done with your data. So I think it's part of transparency, and if we want to engage them, they need to see a result at some point.
I think that's an important aspect as well. And in one of the previous sessions, it was said, okay, that actually there was somebody who was pretty provocative, actually a patient advocate, who said, okay, well, I don't have a right on my data, once I've contributed my data, then it's out there, and people shall live and work with that. But of course, there's different perspectives on that one. But really about yeah, let's say quality and of data, and how to really then work and deal with the data. That's a key aspect as well. So where actually there's different perspective, and we need to align on that in order to get actually the maximum benefit out of that. Yeah. So yeah. Like it's like it. One consideration when you said okay, and I agree with your point that was that say yes, actually patients, they're really really skilled, and really those patients who are really taking action and want to be in control, they're getting so skilled and so knowledgeable. And actually, when I started working in oncology, I don't have a medical background, right? So what I learned about cancer disease, I learned from the patient advocates, because they were able to explain to me in simple words on what is the disease about, what are the treatment options included. So actually they're really doing an excellent job there. At the same time, let me ask a provocative question towards the patient community or the patient representatives that we are working with. Patients becoming experts and really experienced in participating in scientific discussions, being heard by regulatory bodies, etc. Don't they develop a bias? Is it still the patient perspective that they're providing? What do you think about that one?
I don't know for the patient advocacy group, but I think working also with biobank is also a bit the same. Like when you have a healthy participant agreeing for giving a sample, if you look at where they are from, well, there is bias in the population. They are either more educated or wealthy, or so you introduce a bias. But at the same time, it's better than nothing. So at some point, you have to start somewhere. So, but for patient advocacy group, maybe there is a bias. Not every patient is super knowledgeable, but still the knowledge they have for sure is what they feel with their disease was something that no one else can have. That what happened to them in real life. And it's like every product developer should have in mind. You have to ask your client, and the client is a patient. Is what I'm developing for you, is it useful? Does it relieve the pain or not? And so, but yeah, maybe not really answering the question.
To build on that, I think it goes back to the concept of diversity and inclusion in your engagement, and I think it also depends on what question do you ask to whom. And I think it's always a good idea to have both the perspective of advocates, which can rise to the level of experts, and they give feedback on behalf of a community, very much of a meta view of what's needed for their community. But also, if you want to have more of a feeling of the lived experience of the patient journey, then you can ask directly to patients, caregivers, who will talk about what they feel, what they know, what they live. And if you do both, then you have the complete picture. And also having these engagements in different geographies and different communities, I think can help you having a more of a representative feedback from the community, and as opposed to always going to the same person over and over, which leaves you with blind spots.
And if I could add on that, I mean, diversity, absolutely. This is the way how we are dealing with those psychological biases in general. But also one aspect that we need to keep in mind is also caregivers' point of view, so they're also equally important. I mean, we had a patient in Bulgaria telling us, everyone was taking care of me, different organization initiatives. Nobody was asking my husband, how is he actually, because the whole household work, family, was on his back basically, and there was not enough support initiatives and engagements, from that perspective. And this is also opening our eyes how to actually consider the full 360 around the patient.
Yeah, I'm very glad and very happy that you mentioned the caregiver, Andrei, because this is indeed, I mean, they're carrying a huge burden and responsibility as well, and they are part of that system, and absolutely need to be let's say be taken care of or considered at least as well. Absolutely agree. Yeah, I like this conversation, and Nicolas, what you mentioned in response of my provocative question, indeed straight to the point, and it again speaks about what you mentioned about it's a science. Patient engagement is a science. It needs to really have the right solid methodological approaches, which also includes what kind of engagement, qualitative, quantitative. Who's the participants? Is it expert patients? Is it, let's say, lay patients, caregivers? I think that's something that all connects together. We're slowly coming to the end of our session. Unfortunately, I would really love to continue for another hour or so. And if you have got a question that you want to pose to the round, please do so. Otherwise, I would have maybe one last question. And this is about, usually we say, okay, so we as the industry, we have a commitment and obligation to really invite patient representatives to provide us with their insights, with their perspectives. So we invite. So what do you think about, how open are we towards, the patient community, for them to invite us to engage with them on topics of their interest? So are we doing so? And do you get such requests? Or is it something which is always coming from industry?
I think I can comment to that. We get requests from the other side to share perspectives and to share inputs, and also to drive some discussions, but it's mostly us inviting them. I think once you're in the inner circle and you have the good connections, then you're invited more. But it takes time to build that network, and I think also to build trust. Because like I said, sometimes we are seen as, hey, you just want to make money, so should I talk to you? And once the trust is there, that it's really about the bigger picture, then I think you can start to build. It takes some time.
Thanks. I saw the others nodding, but maybe also you have...
Definitely, I would say it's a question of time, and I'm very happy to be in a company that is actually investing in all this partnership and discussion. It takes time. It doesn't generate revenue. I mean, I'm sorry, we are in a profitable world, but that's important and that's strategic. So we spend money on that and time. And yes, we also receive requests, and we are not trying to sell anything. We are listening. We are discussing what they are interested in, and with time, then trust come, and one day a pharma company come with a project, we can match both, and then the magic happens. So that's how it should work.
Maybe I can add something to Audrey, because it's also the opinion I have and the experience I've got. So more and more frequently, patients are approaching us, so in very comprehensive way. So each and every request or approach, it's noted and carefully reviewed, because in one moment, the patient can see in industry also a driver and supporter from different perspectives. So, and this is the best, because it's a co-creation with the creativity of the patient, with their need, with their how to say, their further expectation. And it's also a matter of company intelligence and culture to support and to be there for them. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. So yes, as we are coming to an end of our time, I really enjoyed our conversation. But maybe to end it really with a quick tour de table, with on a scale from 1 to 10 with regards where are we as industry, as company, with regards to patient centricity engagement. With 10, everything is perfect, to 1, oh gosh. Where would you see us? Maybe just with a very quick statement explanation about your rating. We've got about 20 seconds per person. So just intuitively, scale 1 to 10, patient engagement, patient centricity, where are we? So Nicolas, you were last presenting, first to go now.
Thank you. Well, I think that's truly a question for patients, right? We should ask them how they feel about that. From my perspective, I mean, there's definitely room for improvement, for more. So anywhere, maybe around an 8, that would be my perspective. But I also want to acknowledge that it is biased because this is what I do all day, every day. So I see a lot of it, but it's truly a question for patients.
Yeah. Thanks. Audrey?
This is super difficult to not be biased on this. Of course, we are proud of what we are doing. So I would say be on the conservative side and say we are at, let's say, 7. So, but we have this patient-driven objective for 2025 on our side. So I think if we have 3 years to go to 10, so 7 is reasonable. But I agree, we should ask the patient.
Okay, so Erik, what's your rate?
I would go for a 7, and here it's also cultural. So in the Netherlands, an 8 is already very high. So I would keep it to a 7.
Okay, wonderful. Andrija?
On some topics we might be close to 8. On some topics we are close even to 1, to be fair. So I mean, I think the question is so broad that there are really different subtopics. On some we are really improving rapidly, but on some there is still long way to get better. Yeah.
Well, thanks. And Boryana?
As well, I will be not exactly precise, but it's more important, not exactly the scale, but the willingness, the presence, the enthusiasm, and the heart.
Yeah. Thank you. That's fantastic closing words. To be fair, also I need to give my rating, and having listened to all of you here, I would say I would say a 7. There's really lots we still can do, but we have the right mindset here at the table, and and if this is the true picture of our industries, then I think we are on a good way forward. But still, nothing to rest upon, but really to continue and be even stronger. And let's give this question, to the patients, as you said, Nicolas, how do they rate us, and respond to that. With that, thanks very much. This was a fantastic panel. We have seen each other for first time today, and I think this was really a very good exchange. And I'm looking forward to staying connected and continue, and including all the participants that were listening to us and providing their comments and questions. With that, Gunnar, thanks very much again for allowing us the time, and back to you.
Thank you all. It was a fantastic session indeed. And based on the rating, I would conclude that the situation is good, but we can do better.
Yes.
So aiming for 10 for the next years. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Boryana. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.